Hello world, it's Wulf here. Last night I had the chance to go see Star Wars The Last Jedi with my good friends Skwirls and Tactic.
Hey world, Skwirls here, and last night I just saw Star Wars The Last Jedi.
What's up everybody, this is Tactic. Hope you guys are having a great day out there. Just saw Star Wars The Last Jedi. Actually I saw it last night. I didn't get home till like 2 o'clock in the morning. So instead of shooting a video last night when all I really wanted to do was go to sleep.
But we were so excited to see this movie, and I was so excited that I got to see it with everyone.
We just wanted to give you guys some initial reactions of what we thought of the movie.
I wanted to take a little bit, kind of think about what I saw.
Going into this movie, I had a lot of high hopes. I had a lot of people, a lot of friends on my timeline on Twitter, a lot of friends in person tell me how much they love the movie.
Leading up to the release of the movie, like the week before, I actually saw several articles online and several tweets of people saying it was literally like the best thing since The Empire Strikes Back.
But I actually heard from one of my good friends that this was, in his opinion, the best Star Wars movie that they've ever made, period.
But my Twitter was also full of people that didn't like it and had some really strong opinions about it. So going into the movie, I was trying to keep an open mind and really just see it for what it was.
I actually only heard 2 negative reviews, and they were understandable. So one person said that they felt like the movie was kind of slow. I didn't really get the chance to talk to the other person, but I mean, I kind of guess I could see that in a way. It was kind of slow at times, but it was all like important to the plot. I didn't feel like any time really was unimportant, or there was like any sort of filler, if that makes sense.
Also could have been slightly shorter. I kind of thought, about when I thought it was like, hey, about time for this movie to end, it went on for maybe another 20-30 minutes, which, again, I wasn't upset about. It was more Star Wars, so it wasn't really like I was complaining. But I just feel like with the content that was in the movie, you could have condensed it maybe a little bit.
There were various parts of the movie that I loved wholeheartedly, phenomenally loved.
Anytime you get to see a Star Wars movie, it's going to be a good time. You're not going to be disappointed. And I tell you what, Rian Johnson did a fantastic job. I understand completely why he just got that new deal to produce and direct his own trilogy of whatever he wants to do. So I can definitely see why. He did just a phenomenal job putting this movie together.
It was a really good Star Wars movie. He did a really good job of capturing the idea of Star Wars. So there were a lot of things that I liked about it. There were some things that I wasn't so sure that I liked about it, but overall I really enjoyed the movie. I had a great time watching it.
There were other parts of the movie that I wasn't so sure I loved entirely. They weren't necessarily bad, but they were, I was unsure.
Get the bad things out of the way first. In this movie there's several questions. There's several questions that the movie just doesn't seem interested in answering.
In The Force Awakens, several questions that were created in that movie that you were expecting to be answered in this movie that weren't. There were some questions but some questions that were kind of big ones weren't necessarily answered in this movie, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's probably the only part for me that I really was bummed about, is that there's a lot of questions still left unanswered. But at the same time, it leaves you for hope that, they will be answered in the future movies.
I know Rian Johnson kind of has an idea of where he wanted to go with this movie, and I think he did a really good job kind of keeping his vision focused and keeping his vision on how he wanted to be. Definitely made a unique Star Wars movie, but I also think that in doing that, there were some details and some things that at least I had questions about, that he just didn't seem to take the time to think it was important enough to answer those. And they weren't big plot points or anything necessarily, but they were just things I was like, I kind of wish I knew more about that or had more information on that. Also, I feel like it took a lot of what J.J. Abrams set up in Episode 7. Some things that he kind of built up to be, hey, these are going to be important parts of the movies coming up. They're going to be important parts of this new trilogy. Then this movie kind of handles just in such a quick way that it seems like it was building it up to then be, kind of just set off to the side. Is like, well, this isn't really as important as we made it sound like. There's other stuff we want to take care of, so we're going to put that stuff kind of off to the side. We'll just like mention it and then move on. Which isn't a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do it that way, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but it was definitely kind of strange, when you're in the middle of a trilogy, to have these big points that then kind of just get pushed off to the side like that.
I loved Luke Skywalker in this movie. He did a phenomenal job. Mark Hamill, just an incredible actor, really made it seem like his character had really matured and aged appropriately, because he's an older guy now. So he had a phenomenal role in the film. My boy Finn, he was great in it. He showed some real heroics. Honestly, I think all the cast really just blew me away with how well they performed, how well they executed their roles. I think there was a lot of character development, especially in Rey and Kylo Ren. Another thing I think is really cool is how they handled Princess Leia. I mean, you know that in real life Carrie Fisher passed away, unfortunately, after the movie had been done filming. R.I.P. to her. But they really did a great job with her character as well, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
There were some really good action scenes that I just sat there and kind of stared at the screen with my mouth open for a good 45 seconds, a minute and a half, however long it was, and just watched it because the spectacle was so amazing and it was so different than kind of what you're used to seeing in a Star Wars movie. I mean, Rogue One did a lot of really good set pieces. Rogue One, I think, felt they did a really good job making it feel the most like the original trilogy. Whereas this, as I said, continues that story and it feels cohesive, but at the same time also felt very different from the Star Wars that we're used to, which I think is another reason why some people really had an issue with it and really didn't like it as much as maybe others did.
I will say it's interesting to see that on Rotten Tomatoes we're sitting at like a 54 or 56% or something like that as far as fans are concerned, whereas the critics are ranking it up in the 90s. So it's really interesting that the critics are ranking it so high and the fans are intermixed. Although, when it comes to Star Wars fans, some of us can be really hardcore, and not always in the best of ways, right?
But the set pieces were awesome. This movie has what has to be my favorite 30-45 second segment out of any movie I've ever seen in my life. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but there's just a moment in the movie where it stands out from everything else, not just in the movie but from any movie, where it was just beautiful and the visual effects were amazing and the way that it was cut into the movie was so perfect that I don't think I'll ever forget that. But the biggest thing and the biggest reason why I came out of this movie really feeling happy to be back in the Star Wars world and really feeling happy to be watching the movie was that this is the first movie I've probably seen, literally in the last 20 years, that I legitimately had no idea what was going to happen. Usually, once you're a third or a halfway into a movie, you have a pretty good idea what's going to happen. You've got a pretty good idea where it's going to go. The story, even if it's not predictable, okay, well, this is the main character. You kind of get an idea of what the story arc's going to be. You have the idea of where the director's taking the movie.
Definitely were some parts where it was just like mind-blowing what went down. I didn't think anyone was really expecting some of the major plot points of the movie to happen. I would have to say that a lot of the people who speculated beforehand, a lot of the people who gave their opinions, they were all pretty much wrong. They didn't really know what was going to happen, and of course the movie itself just proved everyone was wrong.
And then there were certain characters that you thought were going to go one way and then went the complete opposite way. And then there were twists after twist after twist after twist, which was really cool and really made the plot very compelling. It really kept you in your seat, kept you wanting to watch all the way to the end.
it starts off fairly predictably from the last movie. You get the idea of like, okay, the 7 ended here, this is the next logical step. But from that point on until maybe the last 10 minutes of the movie, like every time I thought I knew what was going to happen, every time I thought I had an idea of what to expect, like it was literally the opposite of that. And in a good way. Like it wasn't like, oh, I hope they do this, and then I was let down by the decision they made. It was kind of like, well, I imagine this is what they're going to do. And then it totally blew my mind, and they totally went another direction with it, and I really couldn't be happier about that. It was such a special experience to sit and watch a movie and not know what the end was going to be before we got there.
There were definitely times where, you know, your mouth was wide open just in shock, and there were times where you laughed. That was great. I love seeing the porgs, those little furry bird creatures. They're great.
But overall, my impression of the movie was very positive. I did love the movie. This was definitely not like an episode 2 endeavor where, you know, the second movie of the trilogy comes out and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is where this trilogy is going, this is crap. I definitely don't feel like it was that my impression was anywhere near that level of disgust by any means.
And I'm just excited to see where they go from here. I would definitely say if you are more of a movie critic, where you have a lot to say and your movie has to be perfect, I definitely would say that you probably will not be disappointed. It wasn't something where it was like just we can appreciate it because it's Star Wars. It was something where it was just an actual incredible plot, incredible story, a lot of really great camera tactics, a lot of really great just like formulation of just how the scenes were going to develop.
It's at the same time, it's totally different than all the other Star Wars that I can remember, but at the same time feels so cohesive with the rest of the story that it feels like it was such a good addition to the franchise.
Overall, I'd have to give it out of a 10 score. I probably would give it a 9, maybe a 9. Like I said, there's just a couple things of just like questions being unanswered, but you can't really blame them for it. They only have so much time in a movie, and they got to make it just as amazing as possible. I think they did that.
Definitely watch this movie. If you get a chance to see it in a theater, definitely take that opportunity. It's worth the price. It's worth the time. It's worth making the effort to go to a theater and see it how it's meant to be.
If you're a Star Wars fan, or even if you're not a Star Wars fan, give it a shot. Go see it with your friend, your family.
I did thoroughly enjoy the movie. Hope you guys see it.
The experience of it is probably my favorite movie-going experience that I can remember in a very, very long time. If you want to talk about the movie,
let us know how you feel about it.
Definitely hit us up in the comments below.
Argue back and forth as you know we like to do on YouTube and we like to do on the internet, especially as nerd fandoms are concerned.
Follow us up on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button.
Hit that notification bell so we can notify you when we post new stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
As always, guys, stay squirrely.
As always, it's been a pleasure.
From Wulf and all our friends, have a good day.